Hello. Hello, everyone. Hi. Happy Saturday. Hey, fam. I see you. Can you guys let me know what's up? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Are we good or no? What is the vibe? Thanks for being here, fam. I saw Itty Bitty earlier. Clar, Tony. What's up? Hi. Happy Saturday. Happy weekend. Yes. What's up? I hope you guys had a good Halloween, a safe Halloween. I didn't do much of anything but work and stay busy, so it's rainy and cold out here where I live, so I'm feeling very true crimey, and we're gonna go live a few times today. We're gonna start off with reading legal documents, the hip hop rap community. I have been covering the Diddy indictments, and today we're going to cover the court response to Diddy's gag order. We're going to cover, if you don't know who Lil Durk is, we're going to cover his lawsuit, as well as Megan Thee Stallion, who sued a blogger. And then we're going to cover, let me see, I got Lil Durk, Megan Thee Stallion, Diddy, and the Metro Boomin lawsuit. They're quite long, but we read documents here all the time. We're going to get through them pretty quick. They're very interesting if you are involved in the hip hop community. We know we've been covering Diddy. That's wild. Everything we talk about here is allegedly my opinion only. Nothing is factual here other than what's, I guess, on these documents, right? They're legal documents from the court. So that's what I'm reading from. Hey, Karen. Let me make sure I got everybody. Mystique. Hello, Mystique. Thanks for making it. I see Yashira. Am I saying that right? Let me know. Thanks for being here, Karen, Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Thanks for being here on the weekends. It's just chill vibes today, reading documents. I will be covering 𝗏𝗏, Maddie Soto later, and continuing on the Menendez brothers trial. So I will link the last Diddy video where I read the 7 lawsuits. So if you haven't been caught up, you can get caught up. Go and watch my video. Let's get started. Hey, Emily's Dismantling Delulus. Thanks for being here, love. Let's start off with Lil Durk's. This was filed on 10/24. United States of America versus Durk Banks, aka Lil Durk, aka 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗲. Criminal complaint by telephone or other reliable electronic means. Let me see if this is something I even. Oh, and I just want to say that I skimmed over these. I didn't read through them entirely on my own. So we're gonna get through this together. I only read the Diddy one a little bit. So just bear with me, bear with your girl. We're reading these together. We're doing it together. File 10/24. Purpose of affidavit. Lil Durk. This affidavit is made in support of a criminal complaint and arrest warrant against Durk Banks, also known as aka Lil Durk, aka 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗲, for a violation of 18, which is conspiracy to use interstate facilities to commit murder for hire resulting in death. Lil Durk is a rapper. If you weren't familiar with who Lil Durk was. I'm not a big fan of Lil Durk's music, but I am familiar with Metro Boomin and Diddy and Megan Thee Stallion, which we will be reading next, but I thought this was critical to the hip hop community, rap community, legal community as well. I'm into reading the documents. So if you're into that kind of stuff, make sure you hit that like button and check out the previous videos of the indictments and stuff we go over here. If you see me cross something out, it's because it's irrelevant or just a waste of information that we don't need to know. We're just going to get to the factual parts of the legal documents. Hey, Life Artist. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Okay, so summary of probable cause. Lil Durk indictment. Banks is the leader of a Chicago-based rap collective known as Only the Family, or OTF. In addition to OTF's status as a rap collective, known based on the investigation that OTF also acts as an association, in fact, of individuals who engage in violence, including unaliving and assault, at the direction of banks and to maintain their status in OTF. For example, based on evidence collected during the investigation, including the interview of witness 1, I know that Banks put a monetary bounty out for an individual with whom Banks was feuding named TB. So this is a rapper that is being accused of murder for hire. I know, it's wild. I do want to note it says, due to the serious safety concerns, this affidavit does not provide the identity of these witnesses. Based on the FBI's investigation, I know that witnesses and or their family members have already received threats and or have been contacted in what appear to have been attempts to influence their participation in this investigation. So you will see people's names shortened to initials. And in this case, it was Lil Durk was feuding with TB. As detailed below, on August 19, 2022, multiple OTF members and associates used 2 vehicles and worked in tandem to track, stalk, and attempt to unalive TB at a gas station located in Los Angeles, California. The co-conspirators fired at least 18 rounds at TB's vehicle, striking and unaliving SR, TB's family members who was traveling with TB. On October 16, 2024, a grand jury sitting in the Central District of California returned an indictment charging 5 co-conspirators, Kevon London Grant, DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, Keith Jones, David Brian Lindsay, and Asa Houston, with crimes arising from the unaliving, including murder for hire and conspiracy to commit murder for hire resulting in death. Lil Durk is identified as co-conspirator 1 in the indictment, which is incorporated herein by reference. Based on the investigation as described below, evidence shows that Lil Durk ordered TB's unaliving and that the hitman used banks and OTF-related finances to carry out the unaliving. For example, bank and flight records show that an OTF member and close associate of Lil Durk coordinated and paid for Jones, Lindsay, Wilson, Houston, and another OTF member to travel from Chicago to California on the day before the murder, which was August 18, 2022. Co-conspirator 3 paid for the flight using a credit card link to Lil Durk and OTF. Around that time, co-conspirator 3 purchased the co-conspirator's flight to California, and iCloud records show that a phone number associated with Lil Durk texted co-conspirator 3, quote unquote, "Don't book no flights under no names involved with me." Emily says, did Lil Durk get indicted to the P. Diddy thing? That would suck for him. You know, I mean, it's all coming out around the same time. I'm not sure if this is related to anything like that. Doesn't sound like it since it's a total crime, but hey, it's all the same. I feel like it could be. I was going to ask who Lil Durk is. He's a rapper. I'm not very super familiar with his music, but I do know he's kind of big in the hip hop rap industry. Let's continue. Additionally, on the same day that the hitman traveled to California from Chicago, Banks also traveled to California with another charged co-conspirator, Grant, on a private jet. Later that day, Grant purchased 6 ski masks for the shooters to commit to the unaliving and paid for the other co-conspirators' hotel room using a credit card used and under Lil Durk's name. Earlier this morning, October 24th, 2024, federal and local law enforcement executed multiple search warrants at locations with OTF members in and around the Chicago area and arrested Grant, Wilson, Jones, Lindsay, and Houston. After executing the warrants, the FBI learned that Banks had booked on at least 3 international flights scheduled to leave the United States today. When Lil Durk arrived at one of the departing airports, he was arrested by law enforcement personnel. So he was arrested as he was trying to leave the country. Lil Durk on October 24th, 2024. It's wild. Let's see. Let's move on. Summary of probable cause. Let me see if this is even something that we need to read. I might just have to get. Okay, so on October 17, 2024, a grand jury returned an indictment charging Grant, Wilson, Jones, Lindsay, and Houston with the murder for hire and conspiracy to commit murder for hire resulting in the death of SR and discharge of firearms and machine gun in furtherance of a crime of violence resulting in death in violation. The grand jury also charged Jones with the possession of a machine gun in violation of Code 18. As alleged in the indictment, on August 19, 2022, 𝗟𝗏 and others, including 𝗟𝗏's family member TB, a rap artist known as quote-unquote QR, were near their vehicle at a gas station across from the Beverly Center in Los Angeles when 3 gunmen opened fire on the vehicle, killing 𝗟𝗏. Law enforcement personnel subsequently recovered 18 shell casings from the murder scene. At the time of the unaliving, TB had a public feud with Lil Durk. Banks is a Chicago-based gang member and leader of the rap collective known as Only the Family, or OTF. The feud stemmed from a November 6, 2020 unaliving where an associate of TB shot and unalived an OTF rapper named Devon Bennett, aka King Von. Bennett was a member of OTF's and Lil Durk's close friend. Hey Chris, what's up? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. According to 𝗟𝗏𝗃's reporting and witnesses, Banks placed a monetary bounty on TB's life. Based on the investigation to date, including open source research, my training and experience investigating gangs and violent crime, and witness statements, OTF is a hybrid organization that functions as Banks' lead music collective as a gang. Based on the investigations to date, including conversations with other law enforcement agents and witness statements, Houston and Wilson are associated with OTF, and Lindsay and Jones are associated with other gangs in Chicago. Hey, beautiful Augie. Good to see you here, love. No apologies. I appreciate you for being here. Hey, Guidance. Good to see you. We're reviewing legal documents. This one is the indictment for Lil Durk the rapper. And then we're going to move on to Megan Thee Stallion and the Diddy documents. And this was filed on October 24th. The hitman travel using funds linked to Lil Durk. I know the following based on my review of LAPD police reports, surveillance footage, bank and flight records, witness statements, and homicide detectives from LAPD and federal investigators involved in this case. On October 18th, 2022, the day before 𝗟𝗏's unaliving, OTF members learned of the location of TB from a longtime OTF affiliate, co-conspirator number 4. After OTF members learned this, the following men took a one-way flight from Chicago to San Diego: Jones, Lindsay, Wilson, Houston, and co-conspirator 2. The one-way tickets to San Diego were purchased using an American credit card ending in blank, and in the name of co-conspirator 3, and is also associated with OTF and Banks. Based on records from Apple, I know that on that same day, a number ending in 9595, believed to associated with Lil Durk, sent a text message to co-conspirator 3 stating, "Don't book no flights under no names involved with me." Based on my review of hotel records, I know that Grant rented and paid for a room at the Sheraton Universal Hotel in Universal City, California on August 18th, 2022, using an American Express card in Lil Durk's name. Jones, Lindsay, Wilson, and Houston and co-conspirator 2 stayed at the hotel that night before the co-conspirators tracked, stalked, and attempted to unalive TB. Based on my review of the bank records, I know that credit cards were issued under an account belonging to 𝗍𝗄 and Astronaut Sounds LLC. Based on public information, I know that 𝗍𝗄 was Lil Durk's manager in and around 2022. Georgia Secretary of State Online Corporation records show that Astronaut Sound LLC was initially registered by 𝗍𝗄 in 2017. A request of the amendment was filed in 2021 and a new manager, Lil Durk, was added to the business. The bank records also showed that the Astronaut Sounds American Express account had 4 credit cards issued to 4 individuals: Lil Durk, co-conspirator 3, Banks, father of DB, and 𝗍𝗄. Based on my review of records from a private airplane company, I know that Banks, Lil Durk, and Grant flew on the same airplane from Los Angeles to Miami on August 16th, 2022, and back to Los Angeles on August 18th, 2022, the day before 𝗟𝗏's unaliving. Records from a rental property show that Banks' manager, 𝗍𝗄, rented a house in Encino, California from July 1st, 2022 to October 1st, 2022. Based on the investigator's review of photographs of the interior of the Encino rental, I know that the video footage from an August 18th, 2022 podcast shows that the host of the podcast with Lil Durk, wherein Lil Durk appears to be inside the Encino home. On the day of the unaliving, August 19th, 2022, surveillance video shows TV, SR, and others leave their hotel in Los Angeles and enter a black Cadillac Escalade. Surveillance video taken from the numerous locations throughout Los Angeles, including TV's hotel and the gas station where the unaliving occurred, show that two vehicles followed the Escalade for hours leading up to the shooting. One vehicle was a white BMW, unaliving vehicle number 1, and the other was a white Infiniti, unaliving vehicle number 2. Among other things, surveillance video from the unaliving scene shows unaliving vehicle 2 parked in an alley behind the gas station where 3 shooters were wearing black masks exit the vehicle, later identified as Jones, Lindsay, and co-conspirator 2. They walked to the gas station and then opened fire on the Escalade. The shooters then ran back to murder vehicle 2 and drove away. Vehicle 1 drove away from the area in just minutes before the shooting. Approximately 50 minutes after the shooting, surveillance video from In-N-Out restaurant in Los Angeles shows Grant, Jones, and Wilson arrive in vehicle number 1. The video also shows Lindsay and co-conspirator 2 arrive at the In-N-Out in a black SUV. Based on a comparison of surveillance video showing the unaliving to video from the In-N-Out restaurant, law enforcement identified that Lindsay, Jones, and co-conspirator 2 were the individuals who opened fire on an unalived SR. A few hours after the shooting, Jones, Lindsay, Wilson, Houston, and co-conspirator 2 boarded a flight from San Diego to Chicago. Once again, the credit card in the name of co-conspirator 3 was used to pay for the one-way tickets. The conclusion. For all the reasons described, this is a probable cause to believe that Lil Durk violated 18 USC conspiracy to use interstate facilities to commit murder for hiring, resulting in the death. So that is what got Lil Durk arrested. This was filed on 10/24. Let's move on. We got through the first legal document. Hey, Evie, good to see you, love. I didn't see you pop in here. What's up? Shout out to you guys for being here today. Hit the like button, please. Help your girl out. Help your girl out, please. Let's see. Which one do I want to read next? Let's move on to Megan Thee Stallion. Megan Thee Stallion is a female rap artist, and she recently sued a blogger. Life artist, nothing like a burger. Right? I know. Okay, let me know if you can see the screen. I have to put it up on a different in a different form because I couldn't download this document from the court website. So Megan Thee Stallion filed this against Milagro Elizabeth Cooper, who is a blogger, on October 30th, 2024. I'm not super familiar with this blogger. I do know today, allegedly, none of this is factual. It's just what I've heard. This is a legal document. She hasn't been tried in court or anything. Allegedly, Megan Thee Stallion lied about some of the claims in this document. So we'll see. I don't know if that's true. We won't know until we see another legal document. But this was filed on 10/30. I like Megan Thee Stallion too. I like her music, but I know there was a lot of drama over the lawsuit with Tory Lanez, who shot her in the foot, etc., etc. I guess she lies about having relations with him, and somehow it leads to this because in this lawsuit, someone made a sex film allegedly about Megan Thee Stallion. So let's get into it. This is document number 2 we're going over for today. So we did Lil Durk, and now we're doing Megan Thee Stallion, and then I think we'll hop on over to the Diddler next. Let's see. That one's pretty long, but we'll get through them pretty quick. Plaintiff Megan Thee Stallion, against Milagro Elizabeth Cooper, the defendant. Ms. Pete alleges the following facts upon her knowledge and upon information and belief. For years, defendant Cooper acted and continues to act on behalf of Daystar Peterson, also known as Tory Lanez, as an online rumor mill churning out falsehoods about Miss Pete, Megan Thee Stallion, to her tens and thousands of social media followers. Since Miss Peterson's 2020 indictment for the felony assault with a deadly weapon after shooting Miss Pete, to his later conviction in December 2022. Up through today, defendant Cooper performed Mr. Peterson's public bidding to denigrate, belittle, insult, and spread false statements about Megan Thee Stallion on her online social media platforms for no other reason than to bully, harass, and punish Miss Pete for Mr. Peterson's conviction and tarnish her reputation, causing emotional distress. So the blogger is known to be connected to Tory Lanez, who Megan Thee Stallion filed a lawsuit against, and he is doing time for that. I did hear that Milagro's father allegedly did an interview with Tory Lanez's father, so I do know there's some connection there. Megan the husband. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's continue. The lengths to which defendant Cooper goes to harass Megan Thee Stallion knows no bounds. For example, she has gone so far to share a deep fake pornographic video of Miss Pete. In June 2024, defendant Cooper encouraged her 27,000 Twitter/X followers to view an X post by 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗲 that shared a doctored artificial created video of Megan Thee Stallion reportedly engaging in sex acts without Miss Pete's knowledge or consent. Wow. After defendant's conduct led to firestorm of negative reactions from others, defendant doubled down in a YouTube video on June 9th, 2024, claiming Miss Pete was a professional victim and denying any wrongdoing. But defendant is wrong. Her conduct was an unlawful promotion of an altered sex depiction and caused Megan Thee Stallion severe emotional distress and reputational harm. In another instance, on September 2nd, 2024, defendant Cooper accused Megan Thee Stallion of having a severe drinking problem, who needs to spend, quote unquote, more time in a relationship with herself and her therapist and maybe AA. Defendant also has no personal relationship with Meg and had no basis to make outlandish and false claims. In yet another instance, on July 30th, 2024, defendant Cooper went so far to cast a doubt on Miss Pete's mental status, asking her followers if Meg has a guardian or no, and whether Meg has ever been deemed like legally, I don't like that word, legally 𝗟𝗲𝗃𝗲. Hey Jojo, good to see you. I'm sorry, I think that word is just disgusting. But you can see it on the screen. Good to see you, Jojo. I'm glad you made it. We're going over the Megan Thee Stallion lawsuit right now against a blogger/someone associated with Tory Lanez. Number 5, defendant's low blows did not stop there. Defendant consistently resorted to name calling Miss Pete, characterizing her as a quote unquote angry black woman and a quote unquote lying ass hoe during her online streams. Additionally, in and around June 29, 2024, defendant tried to pull information on Meg's father in an attempt to publish private information about her family and cause damage to Meg Thee Stallion's reputation. Meg Thee Stallion has repeatedly tried to stop defendant Cooper's misconduct and asked what it would take to stop being posted on the defendant's platforms. In response, defendant provided the snide advice that Meg Thee Stallion should, quote unquote, just get over it or go away. Defendant Cooper also made numerous false statements about Meg Thee Stallion regarding Mr. Peterson in the trial. Defendant's co-conspiratorial relationship with Mr. Peterson is troubling. Defendants act as a paid surrogate used to spread Mr. Peterson's lie about Meg Thee Stallion. For example, on October 27, 2024, defendant Cooper falsely claimed that the firearm Tory Lanez used to shoot Meg Thee Stallion was not produced during the trial because it was missing. That is not the case. The firearm remains in custody of the Los Angeles Police Department. Defendant Cooper could have easily verified this information, but instead chose to ignore it and spread lies about the integrity of the trial and the related investigation. Thanks, 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗲. I appreciate you so much for gifting. Very much. You know that. And welcome, new members. I can't see on my end. Oh, I can now. Jojo, Guidance, 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗲, Sweet and Salty. What's up? Welcome, new members. I see Lily Lore. Hi, beautiful. Wasn't she in there? Yeah, she is. I appreciate you, 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗲. Let's move on. Additionally, Defendant Cooper spread the false rumor that Tory Lanez did not pew Meg Thee Stallion, even after an unanimous jury of Tory Lanez peers decided otherwise. For instance, on October 28, 2024, Defendant Cooper posted a video on her X account directed at Meg and asked, "Can you prove that you was actually shot?" The state did prove the fact that Mr. Peterson is currently serving a 10-year sentence for it. Damn, I didn't know it was 10 years. I thought it was less than that. Ooh, that's rough. Hey, Shadow Dragon. Good to see you. What's good? We are reading, if you're just popping in, we're reading the Meg Thee Stallion lawsuit. We just read Lil Durk's indictment. We're reading Meg Thee Stallion, and then we're going to read Metro Boomin's, and then we're going to review the Diddy document, the new one that just came out. Response from the court. Let's continue. In May 2022, defendant posted an image of a Los Angeles Police Department report from Mr. Peterson's arrest, stating that the first doctor to see Meg confirmed laceration due to stepping on glass, not a firearm wound. However, the information from the police report was recorded before bullet fragments were discovered in Meg Thee Stallion's feet during surgery, which completely debunked the defendant's post. That did not stop bloggers from picking up the defendant's post and spreading the misinformation. Defendant also attended the trial and live streamed her falsehood during hearings. Defendant's posts consistently spread misinformation, challenging the stories of witnesses and their credibility while sharing their names online, amounting to witness intimidation. During the trial, defendant posted the following tweets. And we see a tweet from Milagro, the blogger, and she says, "Talking about credible when sitting in there. STFU." And then she says, "Kelsey spoke to prosecutors and told them one thing, but today says she lied." So she's talking about Meg Thee Stallion here. Kelsey says she's never saw Tory pull a firearm on Megan or shoot her. And then in another post, she says, "All this case taught anyone was that your father, brother, cousin, and or son could face 20 years in prison without proper evidence, a botched investigation, and another likely suspect just because non-credible witnesses said you did something. And y'all slow asses cheering." So this blogger, this is the statements she's making towards Meg Thee Stallion. Hey, Esther, good to see you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. I will not try to advertise, but these, yeah, I agree, Lily Lore. Welcome, 𝗵𝗃, my love. You're now a member thanks to, I think it was you, right? You got gifted. Yeah. Thanks to 𝗍𝗶𝗍. Okay, let's move on. More recently, after posting about a lawsuit a former videographer filed against Miss P in April 2024 and Miss Pete's motion to dismiss, defendant also falsely claimed that Miss Pete was caught trying to deceive the courts again, referencing her testimony in the trial. Enough is enough. Miss P, a victim of violent crime and a champion of women's rights to her millions of fans worldwide, will no longer stand for the defendant's complaint of harassment. She brings us complaint for damages and equitable relief to end defendant Cooper's vendetta against her. So this blogger allegedly is saying that Meg Thee Stallion lied about what happened with her and Tory Lanez. She is, I guess, connected to Tory Lanez. I'm not big on the blogger, but I do like Meg Thee Stallion's music. The parties. The plaintiff is Megan P, aka Meg Thee Stallion, and she's a citizen of Florida who permanently resides in Miami, Florida. The defendant is Milagro Elizabeth Cooper, also known as Milagro Gramz, is a citizen of Texas who permanently resides in Houston, Texas. These are legal documents, so this is public for everyone. I'm not exposing anyone. I'm not doing anything illegal here. We're just going over the legal document. And that's the perk of wanting to file legal documents and lawsuits against people, right? Is your information becomes public. Jurisdiction, we're going to skip the jurisdiction part. And go to the factual allegations. Right here. Factual allegations. Defendant is a malicious actor that operates social media accounts that spread false and harassing content. I have so much to say about that. She's trying to silence a blogger. Is it her opinion? I mean, allegedly Meg Thee Stallion has lied about specific things. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. Let's move on. Defendant Cooper is well-known online social media grifter who traffics in false and sensationalist narratives. Defendant controls and operates an X, formerly Twitter, account under the screen name @MobsWorld, Instagram and TikTok accounts under the name @Milagro Gramz, and a YouTube account under the screen name @MobRadio, collectively the social media accounts. Defendant has the power to determine the subject matter and specific content that is published on her social media accounts, and to remove or refrain from publishing content if she chooses. Defendant is the sole writer or editor of every post on her social media accounts. On information and belief, Defendant Cooper deployed and continues to deploy fake bot accounts on her social media accounts to attack any social media users who defend Meg Thee Stallion or criticize the defendant's characterizations of Meg Thee Stallion. She's going cold. Chris says Milagro's all over this case during its time. I know. I do know that Milagro has been following that. So I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's move on. Defendant engaged in years-long campaign of harassment against Meg Thee Stallion. Throughout Tory Lanez trial and through today, Defendant Cooper has engaged in a campaign of harassment on behalf of Tory Lanez to spread false and harassing messages about Meg Thee Stallion on her social media accounts based on her close relationship with Tory Lanez and his father. In June of 2024, a deepfake video purporting to show an artificially created version of Meg Thee Stallion engaging in sexually explicit acts circulated on the internet, known as the deepfake video. I have not seen that. I did not know anything about that. It is unknown who created the deepfake video. Miss Pete has no knowledge of or involvement in the creation or distribution of the deepfake video, nor did she consent to or authorize or the creation or distribution of this video. On or about June 8th, 2024, Defendant Cooper published on her X account a post that encouraged her followers to watch the deepfake video. As reported by news publication UpRocks, Milagro encouraged users to check the deepfake video out. Numerous individuals followed her advice and accessed the video from the Defendant Cooper's X page. On June 9th, 2024, Defendant Cooper published a video on her YouTube account, and that addressed her X post related to the deep fake video. In the YouTube post, Defendant shared an image of Meg Thee Stallion over a news chyron that questioned whether Miss Pete is a professional victim. A true and correct copy of the screenshot of the image is below. Wow. You guys see that? I suppose she did. Is Meg Thee Stallion a professional victim? And then it says below, I thought Twitter canceled Chris Brown and that no one listened to him. He had no fans. And this is what Milagro, I guess, posted. Defendant then shared a screenshot of an X post dated June 8th, 2024 that directed her followers to go to my likes. A true and correct copy of the screenshot of the image is below. And now we see this image. Wait, who sent that? Oh, Defendant sent a screenshot of an X post. Go to her likes. Defendant's like page included a post that promoted, transmitted, posted, and or shared a publication of the deepfake video and thus provided her followers to access the video. And now it has been deleted as of 6/8/2024. Defendant Cooper affirmed this in her YouTube post. She stated that she told whoever follows me on social media to go to my likes to see what it is that we're discussing, which confirmed that she encouraged her followers to watch the deepfake video. Most recently, on October 27th, 2024, Defendant Cooper made the false and outlandish claim that the firearm Tory Lanez used to shoot Miss Pete had gone missing. Defendant Cooper tweeted, "Didn't I tell y'all that the firearm was never presented in court and that ain't make no damn sense. They gave the serial number and breezed past it. Like, first off, whose is it? Origin point, please. I guess that's what she posted in her Twitter account. And here's the post. We see Milagro posted, didn't I tell you that the firearm was never present in court? Oh, and she links one of the documents. I know that this blogger does talk about Meg Thee Stallion a lot. I do know, I have seen that, so I don't have an opinion yet about it, but I do know she does cover her a lot. Defendant Cooper's statements recklessly disregarded the truth and suggested the firearm was never presented in court because it had allegedly disappeared. It has not. The firearm remains in the custody of the Los Angeles Police Department. It is a standard procedure in California criminal cases to show an image of the firearm in question rather than present the firearm in court. Defendant Cooper could have easily verified this information but chose to ignore it and instead promulgated lies about the integrity of the trial and related investigation. On October 28, 2024, notwithstanding that a jury of Tory Lanez's peers found him guilty of shooting Miss P in December of 2022, Defendant Cooper reposted a video of herself where she discussed the trial on her X account. In the video, Defendant Cooper asked Meg Thee Stallion, quote unquote, "Can you even prove that you was shot?" On October 5th, 2024, Defendant Cooper posted on her X account, quote unquote, "Milagro, stop talking about the case. We've moved on. Every time they lie, I'ma make y'all cry." They Defendant Cooper referred to is Miss P and her supporters. And here's the post. She's just calling her out. Literally just calling her out. I don't know. Defendant Cooper also commented in a follow-up post, quote unquote, "And if y'all believe her, why is who shot Meg a question that's being posed? Y'all so timid, speak up." Defendant Cooper also reposted an online petition on September 15th, 2024 that encouraged her followers to sign the petition to free Mr. Peterson, Tory Lanez, from prison, quote unquote, citing exculpatory evidence when there is none. And then it shows Milagro did a post and it says over 100K people have signed a petition requesting that Tory Lanez be released from prison, citing exculpatory evidence. On September 2nd, 2024, Defendant Cooper reposted a video in which a talk show host stated, quote unquote, "Megan allegedly still has a severe drinking problem. From what I've heard, I think she needs to spend more time in a relationship with herself and her therapist and maybe AA." Defendant Cooper's obsessive post about Miss P continued in August 2024 when she posted a tweet asking if Meg Thee Stallion was caught trying to deceive courts again. Defendant continued to spew false statements and narratives about Mr. P, Tory Lanez. On July 30th, 2024, Defendant Cooper posted a podcast-style video on X in which she states, "What is Megan's mental status? Does she have guardian or not? Has she been listed as a capable person? Has she ever been deemed like legally RETARDED? Like anything of the nature, anything of the sort?" On December 24, 2023, Defendant Cooper posted the following statement on X. And here we see the post. It says, "Megan wants to know what she has to do to stop being posted on certain outlets." And then she says she's going to 𝗟𝗏 y'all hoes. "My suggestion would be to just get over it or go away. Cardi won her case, but Tasha K handed it to her. Other than that, you're going to get posted. Oh well." That's what Milagro posted. On June 22nd, 2023, ex-user account 𝗟𝗏𝗃 shared audio of Defendant Cooper calling Meg Thee Stallion a lying ass hoe and claiming that Miss P ruined Tory Lanez's life. Defendant Cooper liked the post. Even Defendant Cooper's former friend King Noor exposed her for working alongside Tory Lanez to smear Tory Lanez's reputation. King Noor also pointed that Defendant Cooper has a disdain for Megan and that she, quote unquote, talks to Tory's daddy in an effort to leak information to the press that comes from Tory Lanez himself. Another example of Defendant Cooper's regardless reckless disregard for the truth is a May 2022 post on her X account when defendant Cooper posted an image of a Los Angeles Police Department report from Tory Lanez arrest stating that the first doctor to see Meg Thee Stallion, quote unquote, confirmed laceration due to stepping on a glass, not a firearm wound. Jojo says there's no way the boomstick went missing. Hey, gas mask, I saw you pop in here. What's up? I appreciate you for popping in. Why are you giving me side eyes? Don't be giving me side eyes. What's up, gas mask? Let's move on. However, the information from the police report was recorded before bullet fragments were discovered in Miss Pete's feet during surgery, which completely debunked the defendant's post. Nonetheless, bloggers and podcasters like DJ Academics presented defendant's post alongside conspiracy theories that Tory Lanez was never shot. Rather than retract the false story, defendant doubled down to NBC News, stating, "Everything is not going to be something that was intended to be a factual statement. It may have a comedic effect." Defendant Cooper also doubled down on falsehoods throughout the trial. Indeed, she traveled from Houston, Texas to Los Angeles to attend the court proceedings and live streamed her skewed take on criminal proceedings daily to her online followers. Defendant Cooper consistently denigrated witnesses called by the state, including the below examples of defendant's post. So here Milagro says, Megan paid 𝗟𝗃 rent for a year. If that would have been Tory, that would have been a bribe. And she posted that on December 16th, 2022. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. Thanks for being here, love. I appreciate you. If you guys can hit that like button, please, please, so your girl can get in the algorithm. You know what it is. You know what it is. So then Milagro posts, guess what? Sean Hawley wasn't representing Tory when 𝗟𝗃 says Tory said, "My lawyer said to word things a particular way, just like he was never on probation. These hoes very slow." And that was posted on December 16, 2022. And then she posts again, "The audio pulled on the heartstrings of all the people that aren't willing to say, but wait, what about gunshot residue on your hands and the witness statements? Or the fact that she said nothing like this and weren't going to speak until she was told it could be her." And then another post from Milagro about Meg is, "All this case taught anyone was that your father, brother, cousin, or son could face over 20 years in prison." Oh yeah, we saw this earlier. "Without proper evidence, a botched investigation, and another likely suspect just because non-credible witnesses said you did something." And y'all slow ass is cheering. Thanks, Michelle. Defendant intended these tweets to intimidate Miss Pete and any witness that called on behalf of the state. For example, on December 13th, 2022, Instagram live session, defendant Cooper called Miss Pete an angry Black woman because she supposedly believed Miss Pete had an attitude during her testimony. Miss Pete had no attitude. Instead, Miss Pete's testimony was extraordinarily difficult for her as she had to recount the traumatizing events that led to the incident. Defendant Cooper continued to spew false statements about Miss Pete and other witnesses at trial, including in the below examples of defendant's post. And here's another post from Milagro, who's being sued. "Chile, F Casey too, but Meg was dead ass wrong." And then Nicki Minaj responded to her. Wow. Nicki says, "God bless this woman. In all seriousness, this woman was tormented on the internet relentlessly while pregnant with her first child by her best friend who could have easily told people to stop. The girl's girl lying lipo, best friend man effer, shit sad yo, x.com," and tags some link. That was Nicki Minaj. And then Milagro says on March 3rd, 2024, "Someone trolled 𝗟𝗃 and spoke ill of her deceased father, and that's disgusting. She took it upon herself to find out what school they went to and called them. This is the same one that claims she did Megan's homework, right? Chile. Shouldn't she have reported her damn self?" Defendants' disparaging remarks had and continue to have a negative effect on the plaintiff's mental and emotional state. Defendants' conduct caused and continues to cause significant and Personal economic harm to Miss P. It injured her reputation and standing as a professional musician. It caused severe mental and emotional harm. It caused economic harm in plaintiff's efforts to remove the various bots defendant enlists to attach plaintiff's supporters. In sum, plaintiff's damages exceed $75,000 exclusive of interest and cost in an amount to be determined at trial. Cause of action. Count 1. Promotion of an altered sexual depiction. Ms. P repeats and realleges paragraphs 1 through 50 as set forth here. Ms. P is an unidentified person as defined under the statute. Ms. P is a performance artist who is recognizable as an actual person by her face, likeliness, and or other distinguishing characteristics. The deepfake video is an altered sexual depiction as defined under the statute. It is a digital, electronic, mechanical, and or other modification, alteration, or adaptation that depicts a realistic version of Miss P with computer-generated nude body parts presented as the nude body parts of Miss P in sexual conduct as defined in section Florida statute in which Miss P did not engage or participate. So they're saying in this document that the video of Megan Thee Stallion going around is not real. It's AI. I don't know. You guys believe that? Defendant Cooper promoted the deepfake video by transmitting, transmuting, publishing, distributing, circulating, disseminating, presenting, exhibiting, sending, posting, sharing, and or advertising on her X account. Defendant, quote unquote, liked an account promoting the deepfake video, which saved the like on her X account. Defendant then encouraged her followers to go to My Likes, which was where everyone could access the deepfake video via her tweet liked comment. Defendant Cooper willfully and maliciously promoted the deepfake video without Miss P's consent. Defendant Cooper knew or reasonably should have known that the deepfake video was an altered sexual depiction. As a result of the defendant Cooper's misconduct, Miss P had been injured in an amount to be proven, including reputational damages and emotional injuries. Miss P is entitled to recover monetary damages to include $10,000 or actual damages incurred as a result of a violation of subsection 2, which is greater, as well as an award of Miss P's reasonable attorney fees and cost, and a permanent injunction barring defendant Cooper from any future use or publication of intimate visual depictions of her. Ooh, she's trying to shut her down to post anything about her Meg Thee Stallion. If you're just tuning in, welcome to my channel. We are reviewing legal documents for Meg Thee Stallion right now, the lawsuit against the blogger Milagro. Count 2, cyberstalking, injunctive relief. Miss P is the victim of cyberstalking by defendant Cooper because Cooper engaged in a course of conduct to communicate or cause to be communicated images by, through, and the use of electronic mail directed at Meg Thee Stallion, which caused substantial emotional distress to Miss P and served no legitimate purpose. Cyberstalking is a form of wrongful conduct, not speech, which is prohibited by section 784 of the Florida statute. Cyberstalking is a form of harassment that can be enjoined as well as under common law, which provides for the entry of injunctions to prevent harassment. Justice, reason, and common sense justify the entry of an injunction for the cyberstalking Miss P has experienced in this case. Miss P has a clear legal right to the entry of an injunction. Miss P will suffer irreparable harm if the injunction is not issued, for which there is no adequate remedy at law. Miss P has a substantial likelihood of success on the merits of her claim. The threatened injury to Miss P as a result of defendant Cooper's continued misconduct outweighs any possible harm that would result from the entry of an injunction. The considerations of the public interest support the entry of an injunction. Miss P has not made any previous attempt to obtain any injunction for protection against defendant Cooper in this or any other court. Wherefore, Meg Thee Stallion seeks a temporary and permanent injunction restraining defendant Cooper from committing any acts of cyberstalking against her and providing any terms the court deems necessary for the protection of Miss P, including any injunctions or directives to law enforcement agencies. Count 3, intention, infliction of emotional distress. So this just basically states the same thing. Defendant Cooper intentionally or recklessly inflicted emotional distress upon Meg Thee Stallion when she knew or should have known that emotional distress would result by making social media posts related to the deepfake video and the statements described above. Defendant Cooper's conduct was outrageous as to go beyond all bounds of decency and to be regarded as odious and utterly intolerable in a civilized community. The revilement Defendant Cooper inflicted upon Miss P is explicit and egregious. Defendant Cooper's conduct has caused and will continue to cause severe emotional distress, shame, humiliation, and embarrassment to Meg Thee Stallion. As a direct and proximate result, Miss Meg Thee Stallion is entitled to recover damages from the Defendant Cooper in an appropriate amount to be determined by the trier of fact. Count 4 is invasion of privacy, false light. Defendant Cooper acted knowingly and or in reckless disregard as the falsity of the deepfake video and the false light the deepfake video would place Miss P. The actions of Defendant Cooper are highly offensive and objectionable and would outrage or cause mental suffering, shame, humiliation, or hurt feelings to a person of ordinary sensibilities. Defendant Cooper's conduct was outrageous as to go beyond all bounds of decency and to be regarded as odious and utterly intolerable in a civilized community. Jury demand, Meg Thee Stallion request a jury trial on all issues to be tried. And that's the end of that one, filed October 29th, 2024. So we just got through that. Hey, Anton, what's up? Good to see you. Thanks for being here, you guys. Make sure you hit the like button. I hope you all had a good day. We're moving on now to the next document. So we did Lil Durk, we did Meg Thee Stallion, and now we're going to go over Metro Boomin, which is a rapper also known as Lil Wayne, and he is known for, he's being charged, well, allegedly accused of battery, civil SA, Ralph Act, and gender violence. So these sound a lot similar to the Diddy stuff. We're just going to go through the main parts of this document as well. Did I see Tipsy? What's up, girl? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate all my mods. All my mods are great. Let me pull up. What did I say I was doing? Okay, yeah. Happy Saturday, you guys. I appreciate you for being here. We're getting through these documents. They're important. We're gonna read the Diddy document last because it is quite long. But again, we're on our third document, so we read this stuff pretty fast here. This is the lawsuit against Metro Boomin for sexual assault. The plaintiff is Vanessa Lemaistre. She hereby alleges and by through her counsel Wigdor LLP as her complaint against Metro Boomin. Preliminary statement. Ooh, I didn't know about this, by the way. This is another rapper, hip-hop artist. Metro Boomin is an award-winning music producer and artist who has found fame in his successful partnerships with rappers Future 21 Savage, and Big Sean. He is considered to be one of the most significant producers in the rap and hip-hop community, having been nominated for Album of the Year at the 65th Annual Grammy Awards and Producer of the Year at the 66th Annual Grammy Awards. Metro Boomin released his first album, Not All Heroes Wear Capes, in 2018, which debuted at a #1 on the Billboard 200 chart. His second album, Heroes and Villains, was released in 2022 and was nominated for the Best Rap Album of the 66th Annual Grammy Awards. In February 2016, Miss Lemaistre suffered from the greatest loss possible when her 9-month-old son, Camden, passed away as a result of a rare fatal disease. So Lemaistre is the plaintiff who is suing Metro Boomin. Let's move on. Miss Lemaistre was deeply distraught in and mourning when she met Metro Boomin in the spring of 2016 in Las Vegas, Nevada. When Wayne invited Miss Lemaistre to visit him at a recording studio in California where she lived, she was happy for the opportunity to watch him work because she was passionate about music, but more importantly, because music provided an escape from the pain she was in after losing her son. Devastatingly, however, meeting Wayne resulted in Miss Lemaistre suffering from the second worst thing that ever happened to her, being assaulted by someone who pretended to be her friend for months. So trigger warning, we are going to get into more of this assault stuff, similar to the Diddy stuff. Okay, under the guise of a friendship and a shared love of music, Metro Boomin gained Miss Lemaistre's trust. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Lemaistre's trust as her shared as she shared her grief over her son's death. Miss 𝗼𝗍 believed that they had bonded over the ability of music to help people in their darkest moments. However, any bond Miss 𝗼𝗍 believed they formed was shattered in around September 2016 when Wayne invited her to the studio to watch him work. Miss 𝗼𝗍 arrived and was immediately giving a shot of alcohol. She also ingested half of a Xanax bar, which she used to cope with her anxiety after her son's loss. Miss 𝗼𝗍 arrived and Miss 𝗼𝗍 and Metro Boomin sat on a couch and discussed their mutual depression, with Metro Boomin telling her that he was depressed because he had just broken up with his long-term girlfriend, and Miss 𝗼𝗍 sharing again how difficult it was since her son had died. Metro Boomin then went into the studio to begin working, and Miss 𝗼𝗍 settled on the couch for what she believed would be a normal night, watching him work and enjoying the music. However, the next thing Miss 𝗼𝗍 can recall is waking up on a bed in a different location with Metro Boomin assaulting her and being completely unable to move or make a sound. She was in and out of consciousness for an unknown amount of time, but awoke again at some point to Metro Boomin performing oral sex on her. What? This is wild. This is absolutely wild. At no point during the encounter, Miss 𝗼𝗍 able to consent to any sexual activity, and Metro Boomin's conduct without question constituted 𝗟𝗡E and 𝗟. A few weeks after the assault, Miss 𝗼𝗍 found out that she was pregnant. She had not had sex with anyone else, so Miss 𝗼𝗍 knew that the pregnancy was a result of Metro Boomin assaulting her. Given the recent loss of her son and the traumatic cause of her pregnancy, Miss 𝗼𝗍 knew she could not continue the pregnancy and maintain any semblance of her declining mental health. As a result, Miss 𝗼𝗍 had an abortion in November 2016. Approximately 1 year later, Metro Boomin produced the song Rap Saved Me with the lyrics, quote unquote, "She took a Xanny and then she fainted. I'm from the gutter, ain't no changing. From the gutter, rap saved me. She drive me crazy, have my baby." The lyrics were horrifying for Miss 𝗼𝗍 to hear over and over again as they recounted the situation that happened to her and caused further trauma. Many years later, Miss 𝗼𝗍 is still working to put herself back together after experiencing such an extraordinary amount of trauma at the hands of Metro Boomin, someone she truly believed to be her friend but turned out to be her worst nightmare. I'll skip the jurisdiction part and we'll move on to the parties. This is wild. Plaintiff Vanessa 𝗼𝗍 is a 38-year-old woman domiciled in Los Angeles, California. Defendant Leland T, quote unquote, Metro Boomin Wayne, is upon information and belief to live in Cartersville, Georgia. This is very wild, huh, Esther? If you follow like the hip hop and rap community, well, just in general, the internet culture, the entertainment, culture. Factual allegations. Wayne has established himself as an award-winning producer and musical artist and disturbing misogynist. Wayne is a Grammy-nominated producer and artist known for his collaborations with Future, 21, Big Sean, which we did hear about earlier. He did win a bunch of Grammys with Drake. And in 2022, Wayne created the soundtrack to the animated blockbuster Spider-Man movie. I didn't know that. Wayne also recorded and released his own music, including the album Not All Heroes Wear Capes in 2018, another one in 2022, all won Grammys. He launched an album in which he collabs with John Legend, Future, Chris Brown, Travis Scott, and A$AP Rocky. In 2017, Wayne launched his own record label called Boominati worldwide in partnership with Republic Records and Universal Music Group. In May of 2024, he received a significant amount of publicity because of his role in a feud that erupted between artists Drake and Kendrick Lamar. We all know about that. In response, dozens of misogynistic tweets that Metro Boomin wrote resurfaced, bringing his flippant attitude towards sexual assault and drugging women to the forefront. The tweets were so problematic that the hashtag Metro Boomin began trending on social media. Although Wayne, quickly went on a deleting spree. Screenshots were taken of the following offensive tweets and retweets, among others. Oof, not the pictures. Not the pictures. So this is what it says. She gon' suck me whether she like it or not. That's what the molly for. Got your little sister on the mollies. She done ran through the whole squad. I'm not gonna rap this out to you guys. I'm sorry. But it says, I'll beat the charge, RT, the girl is 13, all the loose. This is very inappropriate. I can't say these things on YouTube, but can you guys see it on the screen? It says, trying to S-word somebody grandma. Yes, maybe even for the crew too. If a chick that wants me to get her some mollies, is that guaranteed? LOL, she might be young, but she ready. Apparently, yeah, he's talking about all kinds of crazy things. Chris Brown's album, #graffiti, is already outselling Rihanna's album. He just can't stop. #beating her. Michelle, you better stop. I'm not gonna rap. That's funny. You're funny. Oh, and he says, walking through a grocery store with both hands in my khakis like a true pedo. I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to say there. Metro Boomin also tweeted a list of rules to follow numbered 1 through 10. Rule number 1, never trust a hoe. Rule number 2, no means blow. Rule number 3, come into my hotel, y'all gotta blow. 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4. Rule number 4, get your shit and go. Rule number 5, bye-bye hoe. Rule number 6, I'm not kissing you. Rule number 7, I'm tired of talking. Rule number 8, you straight? ? Rule number 9, you had a good time? ? Rule number 10, let's do it again. LMAO. I am so confused. Life artist is like, ew. I'm sorry you guys have to deal with me reading through that. Let's move on. That's super funny. No, they don't like women. I agree. This is not nice. I'm not laughing at this. I'm laughing at the comments you guys are saying. He needs to stop. I need to stop trying to be a rapper. When Wayne's offensive tweets resurfaced, he attempted to defend them by posting yet another offensive tweet. LOL, I can't be a pedo. At 15. #NoPedo. Once it was pointed out that he could not have been 15 years old when the tweets were written, Wayne quickly deleted the tweet, never bothering to disavow his penchant for tweeting about rugging and assaulting women. Vanessa meets Wayne and believes she forms a friendship with him. On February 23, 2016, Vanessa's 9-month-old son, Camden, passed away as a result of a rare and fatal disease. A month or two later, while deep in mourning, Vanessa took a weekend trip to Las Vegas with the hope that the new scenery would be a brief distraction from the overwhelming grief she was feeling and allowing her to dull the pain, even if just temporarily. A friend introduced her to Metro Boomin in Las Vegas that weekend during a day party. Vanessa and several other people hung out at a hotel after that day party and then went to the club together that evening. In the SUV on the way from the day party to the hotel, Vanessa was with Wayne and several other people. During that ride, Vanessa told everyone she had recently turned 30, and although she tried not to talk about it, she told everyone about losing her son as well. Everyone got very quiet and eventually expressed their sympathy. Throughout the day and night, Metro Boomin and Vanessa had several discussions about music and life in general. Metro Boomin invited her to visit him while he worked at studios in California, which was where Vanessa was living. When they returned to California, a mutual friend who was in Las Vegas invited Vanessa to go to the studio to see one of Wayne's studio sessions. Over the next few months, Vanessa went back to the studio several times. Vanessa's interactions were friendly at first, and she found the studio and music to be really a useful distraction for her grief. It became something of a refuge for her, so she could get away from her thoughts for a short period of time and just focus on music. She and Metro Boomin mostly had lighthearted conversations about music, but occasionally they would discuss heavier topics like her grief. Vanessa grew to feel safe and comfortable in Wayne's presence and thought of him as a friend. However, there were moments due to Wayne's excessive coding use that broke the illusion of safety because Wayne was much less predictable when using large amounts of coding. Yet he was never threatening to her, so she did not think much of it at the time. On some visits, Metro Boomin's friends warned him about the risk of taking so much codeine, but he refused to allow anyone to measure his intake. While Miss Vanessa developed a friendly bond with Metro Boomin, she was not in any position to pursue a relationship or intimacy with him. In and around September 2016, Vanessa arrived at the studio to see Metro Boomin, as she had done many times over the last few months. It was a particularly difficult day from a mental health perspective, as she continued working through her grief and trying to accept that her son was gone. Esther says, what he doing nursing right now? I know. Life artist, no, you're not responsible for this garbage rep. Thank you, life artist. I appreciate that. When she arrived, she took half a Xanax, which she used to help through difficult days and numb the pain, and was given a shot of alcohol. It was shortly after Wayne's mid-September birthday, and they discussed feeling mutually depressed. Wayne mentioned that he was upset about a recent breakup or trial separation from his long-term girlfriend. After their discussion, Wayne then went into the studio, and Vanessa sat on the couch to watch and listen as she normally did. However, shortly after she began drinking her shot of alcohol, she blacked out. The next time Vanessa regained consciousness, she woke up on a bed with Wayne on top of her. She had no idea where she was or how she got there. Vanessa was unable to move or make a sound. She felt incapacitated in a way she had never before experienced. She then lost consciousness again and woke up at some point later to Wayne performing oral on her. Needless to say, Vanessa was incapable of giving consent. Several hours later, Vanessa woke up again. She was alone in a hotel room, but she had no idea what hotel she was in or how she got there. She felt unsteady, but tried to quickly gather her clothing and other possessions that were thrown around the room. Just a few minutes later, Wayne walked into the room and told her to get her things. Vanessa asked Wayne where she was, and he said a hotel in Beverly Hills. Vanessa, completely confused and overwhelmed and traumatized by the brief flashes of memory she had, was desperate to get out of the room, so she followed Wayne's lead as she walked out of the hotel to a side street where two black SUVs were waiting. Metro Boomin told her to get into one of the SUVs, and he got into the other one and drove away. The SUV drove her back to the studio where her car was waiting. Vanessa continued to have flashbacks of the two memories she had of Wayne assaulting her. However, as a result of the trauma of losing her son, Vanessa was not emotionally prepared to deal with another traumatic incident and tried as hard as she could to forget the feeling of complete helplessness and terror. She desperately wanted to pretend it never happened. However, a few weeks later, Vanessa found out she was pregnant. She had not had intercourse with anyone else, so Vanessa knew that the pregnancy was a result of Metro Boomin assaulting her. Given the recent loss of her son and traumatic cause of her pregnancy, Vanessa knew that she could not continue the pregnancy, of course, and maintaining any semblance of her declining mental health. As a result, she did not go through with the pregnancy in November of 2016. Approximately 1 year later, oh wait, we already saw that part, right? Where he raps about having the baby again. And then it says, unfortunately, trauma does not disappear regardless of how much you try to push it aside. After a lot of therapy and learning healthy coping mechanism, Vanessa now understands her trauma continues to resurface. She worked relentlessly to improve her health and general well-being and realizes she cannot simply pretend one of the most traumatic events of her life. As a result, Vanessa is determined to seek justice for the pain and devastation she endured and to make sure others are warned that Metro Boomin's offensive tweets are more than just lip service. They are, in fact, blueprint to his behavior towards women. First, cause of action. So these are the charges. I'm not going to go through all of the details because we've kind of heard all of it. So the first one is battery, civil essay. So where plaintiff did not agree to any of the essay acts. And as a result, defendant's alleged conduct, plaintiff has suffered severe emotional distress, humiliation, embarrassment, anxiety, economic harm, and other consequential damages. The second charge is essay battery. Defendant committed essay battery when he intended to and did cause harmful or offensive contact with intimate parts of the plaintiff. Plaintiff did not act freely and voluntarily, and the actions were against the plaintiff's will. As a result, defendant's conduct, plaintiff has suffered severe emotional distress. Third charge is the 𝗟𝗃 Act. I'm not sure what that is, so let me read just the top sentence of this so we know what we're talking about. Defendant committed a violent act against plaintiff motivated by her gender, by penetrating her without consent, and that he would not and could not have committed the same violence against a man, and the violent act was a substantial factor in the resulting physical and mental harm. As a result of the defendant's alleged conduct, plaintiff has suffered emotional distress. So the 𝗟𝗃 Act is that he would not and could not have committed the same violence act against a man. The fourth charge is gender violence. Committed the act of penetration in a contravention of California Penal Code upon information and belief, arousal, gratification, or abuse against plaintiff, will and by force, is therefore liable of gender violence. Let's see what the next charge is. The fifth charge is Bain Act. At relevant times, defendant interfered or attempted to interfere by threat, intimidation, or coercion, and by physical force with plaintiff's exercise or enjoyment of her right to be free from SA assault and sex discrimination as secured by the laws of California. So she's asking for money, mental pain and anguish, severe emotional distress, attorney's fees, punitive damages, and this was filed on October 29th. So there is the Metro Boomin lawsuit. Let me remove that one. Thanks for being here, you guys. We are getting through these documents. I'm a document nerd. I love these things. We're now getting to the last one, the Diddy document, where he tried to gag everyone, the gag order. And this is the response from the court. Let me pull it up. Make sure you guys hit that like button, please. I appreciate you guys for being here. Let's see. So this was filed on the 30th, so just a few days ago, and it's the response from the court to Diddy about him trying to shut down media and trying to get rid of trying to say that the feds leaked the 𝗟𝗶𝗃 video and other media documents that are hurting him in his trial. So here we go. This is a good document. I did kind of look over through it. We're going to skip like all the code stuff and all that just because I don't find that it's relevant to go through that. We're just going to get to the main part. All right, Diddy document. Court's response to him gagging, the gag order, and the claims that the feds leaked stuff. Preliminary statement. The government respectfully submits its response to the series of motions filed by defendant Sean Combs since he was indicted by a grand jury sitting in the district little more than 1 month ago. His motion for evidentiary hearing, among other relief in response to perpetuated leaks, his motion to require the government to identify victims, and his motion for an order prohibiting extrajudicial statements from the civil litigants. So he's asking for all the Jane Does and John Does that they have to, reveal who they are. And the court is like, no, absolutely not. First, the court should deny the leak motion for simple reason that the defendant fails to show the leak of any grand jury material. Without any factual basis, the leak motion seeks to suppress highly probative evidence. A video of Combs brutally physically assaulting a victim in March of 2016 that was published by a media outlet in May of 2024 by claiming that it was a grand jury material leaked by government agents to CNN. But as the defendant is fully aware, the video was not in the government's possession at the time of CNN's publication, and the government has never at any point obtained the video through the grand jury process. The defendant also complains about perpetuated law enforcement sources leaking other alleged grand jury material to the media in several news articles cited in his papers and set forth in the attached table. Here too, the defendant is grasping at straws. Because the defendant cannot show that the information in the cited articles is grand jury material, and because he cannot show that the government agents with access to grand jury material leaked the information, he cannot make the prima facie showing required for relief he seeks. Moreover, even if any of the information in the cited articles could be considered non-public information and properly disclosed, the defendant's request for relief is mooted by the order entered by this court on October 25th, 2024. Second, the court should reject the defendant's bill of particular motions as not only unnecessary but improper. As an initial matter, the defendant has been more than sufficiently apprised of charges he faces, including through a 14-page speaking indictment, the government's submissions and statements on record in connection with the defendant's bail hearings, and significant productions of discovery. And at the appropriate times, in accordance with the well-established practices in this district, the defendant will receive even more disclosures about the conduct in which he is charged, including through additional discovery, an enterprise letter, a witness and exhibit list, and Jencks Act material. Accordingly, the defendant cannot credibly claim that he will suffer unfair surprise at trial. Rather, it is plain that a defendant's request for a bill of particulars containing victim names is merely a vehicle to attempt to prematurely restrict the government's proof at trial and use these criminal proceedings to defend himself and the press against complainants in separate civil litigation. So the court is basically saying that Diddy can't say that he's going to be surprised with any of these charges and information. They're like, you know what's coming. We're not going to surprise you. We're doing everything the right way. This improper request should be denied in its entirety, particularly here where there are serious and ongoing concerns of victim and witness safing, tampering, and intimidation. Finally, the victim gag motion should be denied as an attempt to backdoor the federal rules of criminal procedure to compel the government to prematurely disclose its witness list. Indeed, by seeking a preemptive gag order under the local criminal rule preventing potential witnesses in the criminal case and the counsel from making extrajudicial statements, the defendant, Diddy, is essentially asking for either a blanket order that would apply indiscriminately to any individuals with claim against Combs and their lawyers, or for a more limited order that would require the government to identify its witnesses 6 months before trial. Not only would such relief be unprecedented, but the defendant should not be permitted to use a local criminal rule as a sword to gag civil claimants, whether or not their statements were connected to this criminal proceeding, or to evade established case law in this circuit. Not Diddy trying to shut everyone up. It's wild. Procedural history. In and around November 2023, and as described in more detail below, federal prosecutors from the United States Office for the Southern District of New York were working with case agents from Human Trafficking Squad of the New York Field and Homeland Security Investigations, began investigating Combs and others for violations of federal criminal law. On September 12, 2024, a grand jury returned a 3-count indictment charging the defendant with racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud and coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. As alleged in the detail in the 14-page speaking indictment, starting in at least 2008, the defendant participated with others in a racketeering conspiracy that he led and controlled. The defendant and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the defendant's power and prestige in the entertainment industry to cause female victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers referred to as freak-offs, which the defendant directed and masturbated during and often electronically recorded. The Combs enterprise accomplished its goals through acts of violence and obstruction. With respect to the freak-offs, the defendant threatened victims with the electronic recordings of sex acts as collateral. In addition, the defendant physically assaulted women and others by striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects, and kicking them. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise also at times carried firearms, and on more than one occasion, the defendant carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses of his crimes. Further, when the defendant's power was threatened, the Combs enterprise engaged in acts of violence, including kidnapping and arson, and pressured witness and victims, including through attempted bribery, to stay silent and not report what they experienced or knew to law enforcement. On phone calls, the defendant and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise, among other things, provided these witnesses and victims with a false narrative of events in an effort to conceal the defendant's crimes. Following the return of the indictment by the grand jury, Combs was arrested on September 16, 2024. The next day, on September 17, 2024, United States Magistrate Judge Robin ordered the defendant detained pending trial. United States District Judge Andrew Carter, to whom the case was assigned, held another bail hearing on September 18, 2024, after which he ordered that the defendant remain detained during trial. In reaching his determination, Judge Carter stated that the defendant is a danger regarding obstruction of justice and witness tampering, and a danger to the safety of others in the community more generally. In the last month, the defendant has filed multiple applications for relief from the court, each one insisting that the relief sought was necessary and urgent. On October 9, 2024, the defendant filed the leak motion seeking various forms of relief, including an evidentiary hearing, discovery, a gag order, and a suppression of evidence. Then on October 15, 2024, the defendant filed the bills of particular motion pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure, asking the court to require the government to identify the victims in the case more than 6 months prior to trial. Finally, on October 20th, 2024, the defendant filed the victim gag motion related to media statements from civil plaintiffs and their attorneys, seeking an order prohibiting prospective witnesses and their counsel from making extrajudicial statements, among other relief. The background. Together with the case agents from Home Security Investigations, federal prosecutors from the United States Attorney's Office, Southern District, New York, commenced their investigation of the defendant and others in November of 2023. As part of the investigation and pursuant to the authority of the grand jury issued subpoenas to obtain evidence, including documents and other records, as well as witness testimony. To date, the grand jury has issued over 300 subpoenas and government has interviewed over 50 witnesses, several of whom testified before the grand jury on September 17, 2024. The government also took other investigative steps outside the grand jury process, including obtaining a multiple of judicial authorized search warrants for, among other things, searches of cloud storage accounts and governed by the Stored Communications Act, and searches of certain premises, persons, and electronics devices. The grand jury materials. The grand jury investigation of the defendant proceeded in accordance with Rule 6 of the Federal Rules of the Criminal Procedure, which governs, among other things, secrecy of matters before the grand jury and materials considered by the grand jury. For the purposes of this motion, the government attorneys, analysts, and law enforcement agents who have access to Rule 6 materials are referred to herein as the prosecution team. So I'm curious, Diddy's requesting that everybody who's basically filing a legal lawsuit against him, that they need to reveal who they are. What do you guys think about that? The court says, no, it's too dangerous. We don't have to do that. They don't have to do that, blah, blah, blah. But what do you guys think? I think, yeah, they have to reveal themselves, right? Throughout the investigation, in accordance with Rule 6, the grand jury issued subpoenas for various records relating to the investigation, relevant to the investigation, including hotel records, travel records, financial records, and phone records. The records returned in response to the subpoenas were maintained. Both Homeland Security and South District of New York office investigators access to the repository of electronic files containing grand jury information is restricted to the prosecution team. Specifically, HSI and New York, only 3 assigned agents can access all of this grand jury information. And if an authorized individual attempted to query or access the case file would appear to be empty to an authorized agent. In addition, the lead case agent would receive a notification of the identity of the unauthorized agent who attempted to access the case file. So they're saying here that there's no way someone else can access this system, allegedly, that they have. Famsam sucks to think it could hurt. Yeah. Doodle Mom, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Esther, I love you. Thank you for checking in, and I appreciate you for being here. Doodle Mom, you should be able to join, or I'll drop the link in a second for you to join. I appreciate you. Let's see. Let me pull that. Okay, so moving on. March 25th, 2024, search warrants. Thank you, fam. You're amazing. The government's investigative steps outside the grand jury included numerous judicially authorized search warrants, including multiple warrants executed on March 25th, 2024 in Los Angeles and Miami. Specifically, Homeland Security, NY, New York City, the assistance of agents from local field offices executed search warrants on March 25th, 2024 at 3 locations, which we know got raided, his homes, Miami Beach, LA house, and the persons of the defendant and his chief of staff at the Miami 𝗍𝗶𝗸𝗃 Executive Airport. Each of these warrants executed on March 25th, 2024 was authorized by magistrate judges in the Central District of California, who reviewed the affidavits before signing. Each search warrant consisted of the warrant signed by the magistrate judge. The search warrants to be executed at the airport and the Miami house authorized execution between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., while the LA house warrant authorized execution at any time of the day or night, as it was meant to be executed simultaneously with the warrants at the airport and Miami house. So yeah, they try to raid everything at the same time. That's what I'm getting from here. Welcome, Doodle Mom. Thank you. Shout out to you for becoming a member. I appreciate you for supporting my channel and being here. The airport search, which was conducted after the defendant and others boarded a private plane bound for the Bahamas, began first on March 25th, 2024, and dictated the timing of the execution of the search warrants at the Miami house and LA house. At both the Miami house and the LA house, the Homeland Security special agent served as a team leader, and multiple agents assisted in performing the searches. The team leader at each location had a copy of the applicable search warrant to leave at the location of each search, as required by the Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure. No copies of the affidavit setting forth probable cause were taken to or left at any search location. The team leader at each location also prepared an inventory of items seized, which was left at each premise alongside the team leader's copy of the search warrant. The discovery. Since the defendant's arrest a little over a month ago, the government has made 3 significant productions of discovery material, which include the following categories of materials: all search warrants and supporting affidavits, hotel, financial, and communication records produced pursuant to grand jury subpoenas, and electronically stored information from over 60 of the defendant's own devices and iCloud accounts, including, among other things, text messages, audio and video recordings, photographs, and documents, which the defendant had requested to be prioritized. These materials contain additional details about the allegations against the defendant, including, for example, specific allegations relating to multiple victims in search warrant affidavits and communications with victims and witnesses for the defendant's devices. Forthcoming discovery will similarly contain additional details about the alleged conduct, including additional communications with victims and witnesses, travel and hotel records relating to freak-offs, bank records showing payments to victims by the defendant and entities associated with the defendant, and police and fire department records relating to the kidnapping and arson discussed in the indictment. The argument. Under the law in the circuit, all 3 of the defendant's motions should be denied in its entirety. There you go, Diddy. You're not gonna shut anyone up. Feds did not leak the documents, and we're not gonna consider removing, the Cassie video from trial, which would be wild. There's no way why that should be removed. Hey Johnny, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. First, with respect to the leak motion, the defendant has not made a prima facie showing any leak of the grand jury material. Consequently, the defendant's request for an evidentiary hearing and the suppression of a video showing the defendant violently assaulting the victim must be rejected. Second, the defendant's demand for a bill of particulars identifying victims in the case fares no better because his request, made well before the conclusion of discovery, is both premature and without merit. Finally, the defendant's request for what amounts to a witness gag order should also be denied because it is nothing more than to attempt than an attempt to force the government to prematurely disclose its witness list and or to demand extraordinarily overbroad relief. The defendant is not entitled to the relief he seeks for the purported leaks. In the leak motion, the defendant argues basically that a video depicting the defendant's assault of a victim at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles on March 5th, 2016 was provided to a media outlet by government agents. The leak motion also catalogs alleged non-public information purportedly provided to media outlets by government sources in multiple news articles. However, the defendant cannot demonstrate that the disclosure of the information in the cited articles, including the Intercontinental video published by CNN, was subject to the secrecy protections of the Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure, or that such any disclosure came from a member of the prosecution team. Accordingly, he is not entitled to relief. So nothing proves that the feds leaked the document, according to the court. Federal Rule of Criminal Procedures. The proper functioning of our grand jury system depends upon the secrecy of grand jury proceedings, because absent that secrecy, quote unquote, prospective witnesses may be deterred from testifying. Those who do testify may be less likely to do so truthfully. Targets of investigation may flee, and persons who are the subject of ultimately meritless investigation may face public embarrassment. Rule 6 governs disclosure of any grand jury proceedings and provides that any attorney for the government and any government personnel may not disclose a matter before the grand jury. The core of what Rule 6 protects is evidence that is actually presented to the grand jury, but also extends beyond the literal evidence that's presented to include anything that may tend to reveal what transpired before the grand jury, such as summaries of grand jury testimony. Let's move on. The rule does not apply to disclosures of information obtained independently of the grand jury process, even if the same information might later be presented to the grand jury. When the government gathers information outside of the grand jury through wiretaps, search warrants, and interviews with witnesses not expected to appear before the grand jury, that information is not subject to rule provisions on disclosure. When defendant claims that grand jury matters were disclosed in violation, he must first establish a prima facie case of violation, and that is to determine whether the defendant has made this case. He needs to do this. The court should examine, among other factors, whether the media reports disclose matters occurring before the grand jury, whether the media report discloses a source as one prohibited under Rule 6, and the evidence presented by the government to review allegations of the violation. And the second prong, the sources prohibited under the rule include, as relevant here, an attorney for the government and law enforcement agents to whom grand jury disclosures are made under the Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure. Let's move on. We're almost done with this Diddy document, you guys. Make sure you hit that like button for your girl. Shout out to you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Local criminal rule, non-public, just let me see if this is something we want to read. Separately, local criminal rule 23 entitled Free Press, Fair Trial Detective sets forth restrictions regarding the release of non-public information or opinion in making extrajudicial statements and pending criminal cases and investigations. With respect to a grand jury investigation, participating lawyers, including lawyers for the government and lawyers for targets, subjects, and witnesses, are directed to refrain from making any extrajudicial statement that a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communication that goes beyond the public record or that is not necessary to aid in the investigation, so long as the dissemination will interfere with a fair trial or otherwise prejudice the administration of justice. The court has authority to prevent violations of the rule, but must consider whether the order will be necessary to ensure an impartial jury, and must find that the less extreme available remedies, singly or collectively, are not feasible or would not mitigate the pretrial publicity or bring about a fair trial. Discussion. The defendant is not entitled to the remedies he seeks, including suppression of evidence and an evidentiary hearing, because he has failed to make a prima facie showing that there has been disclosure of matters occurring before the grand jury. The intercontinental video with 𝗟𝗄𝗃 was neither grand jury material nor leaked by the prosecution team. At the forefront of the leak motion is a defendant's bald attempt to suppress a damning piece of evidence against him, a video of him violently beating a victim at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles in March 2016 under the guise of grand jury secrecy. As the defendant well knows, the Intercontinental video publicly released by CNN was not in the possession of the government at the time of its publication and has never been a record obtained through grand jury process. Nonetheless, in the leak motion, the defendant basely accuses DHS agents who have no authority to issue grand jury process of secretly obtaining this video unbeknownst to the prosecutors conducting the investigation and then leaking it to CNN. No evidentiary hearing is necessary to reject these assertions as credible. So there's the court saying, no, we didn't leak. No one leaked anything. The feds didn't have a hold of this video, as Diddy is saying in the motion he requested. As alleged in the indictment, the Intercontinental video was publicly reported by CNN captured one instance at a Los Angeles hotel in or about March 2016, during which Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman as she was attempting to leave. From early in the investigation, the government pursued obtaining video of this assault and investigated the circumstances under which the surveillance video disappeared from the hotel server shortly after March 5th, 2016. So that video disappeared on March 5th, 2016, after $50,000 was paid to that hotel. That's what we found out after, allegedly. Everything I say here is opinion. These are legal documents. Other than that, I guess Diddy is innocent until proven guilty in the court of law, which is supposed to happen in May. Who knows, with all the documents and lawsuits that have been released. If you are not caught up, please catch my last video. We went over through 7 of those documents, and this is a response of the court on October the 30th. The government ultimately obtained the video at the same time as the general public on May 17th, 2024, when CNN publicly released the footage. The morning that CNN released the Intercontinental video, counsel for the defendant contacted the prosecutors assigned to the case to alert them that CNN had the video and expressed a concern that someone, not any of you and not the lead case agents, provided this footage to CNN. Just after 1 p.m. that day, a government analyst alerted the prosecutors that CNN had published a story about the assault, including the hotel surveillance video, which the analyst preserved by screenshotting the CNN online article and downloading the associated video. The metadata associated with the government's copy of the Intercontinental video indicates that the file was saved on May 17, 2024, that is, when it was downloaded from CNN. Okay, that's wild. Thanks for being here, you guys. We're almost through this Diddy document. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Help your girl out, trying to grow the channel. All true crime, everything related. Prior to the date, the government had been unsuccessful in obtaining any video of the assault. And still, as of the date of the filing of this brief, the government has not obtained the Intercontinental video broadcast by CNN from any source other than the public broadcast. Accordingly, any claim by the defendant that the Intercontinental video is grand jury material is flatly wrong, and the defendant was well aware of the fact at the time he filed the leak motion. Indeed, prior to the motion's filing, the government advised defense counsel by email that it possessed no surveillance video from the Intercontinental prior to CNN's public broadcast, and that it had obtained Intercontinental video through CNN's public airing, not through a grand jury subpoena. The government likewise informed defense counsel of its understanding that Homeland Security in New York, which cannot independently issue grand jury subpoenas, similarly did not have possession of this video prior to CNN's broadcast. Desperate to suppress the evidence anyway, the defendant makes an argument that it is reasonable to believe the video was obtained in connection with the grand jury investigation. The defendant reasons, for example, that the government agents may have been responsible for the leak because, among other reasons, the day that CNN decided to publish the video, a slow news day given the break in the Trump trial. But it strains credulity to suggest that the law enforcement agents independently obtained the video with the grand jury subpoena they had no authority to issue. The defendant refuses to acknowledge that multiple individuals other than the government agents, including some of his own employees, may have had access to the Intercontinental video. Hey, Lily, thanks for being here and listening. Thanks, Aggie. I appreciate you. I hope you feel better. Love you so much, friend. So here they say that someone on his team could have had the video too. Very professionally, they say that. Including some of his own employees may have had access to the Intercontinental video. That makes me think they know who had access. Indeed, the government is continuing to investigate who had access to and may have obtained the video, including, for instance, employees of the hotel, security team contracted by the hotel, and members of the defendant's staff who, as discussed on the record, attempted to obtain the video surveillance after the incident in March of 2016. Any of these individuals could have provided the Intercontinental video to CNN, but bald speculation is not valid basis from which to conclude that there was law enforcement leak of grand jury information. The defendant thus falls short for establishing a prima facie in case of Rule 6 violation as the Intercontinental video. Likewise, the defendant cannot plausibly establish that the video was non-public information to South District New York attorneys or its agency partner had in their possession of the CNN's publication. While the clear objective of the leak motion is to suppress the video, the defendant also complains about other leaked information in the cited articles. However, as with the Intercontinental video, the defendant's categorization of much of the information in the cited articles as material protected by Rule 6 is entirely speculative and has no basis in fact or common sense. So he's trying to get a bunch of articles to not come into play in this trial and information. The searches of the defendant's Miami house and LA house and evidence recovered therefrom are the subject matter of the majority of the cited articles. The defendant has not and cannot establish that this information is protected grand jury material because the law is clear that information obtained through search warrants is outside of the scope. The defendant's argument that the disclosure of information about the searches, including the target of the investigation, the types of search warrants obtained, and materials sought and evidence obtained pursuant to search warrants, somehow reveals the nature or direction of the grand jury proceedings. And this is undermined by the very authority the defendant cites. Courts in most circuits, including the Second Circuit, have held that Rule 6 is not violated by the disclosure of information obtained by a criminal investigation that parallels but is independent of a grand jury investigation. Even if the cited articles include arguably non-public information obtained from the searches, disclosure of this information does not constitute a violation of the rule. I'm going to skip some of this. Simply put, the defendant cannot show that the disclosure of information obtained from the search violates this rule. The information in the cited articles obtained pursuant to search warrants is similarly unprotected by this rule. For instance, the defendant complains about the cited articles disclosing witness meetings with the government for Jane Doe's and John Doe's already sat for interviews with the Southern District of New York investigators for a probe related to alleged sex trafficking and racketeering interviews. Prosecutors have interviewed a number of Diddy's accusers, including those who have filed lawsuits. But those cited articles do not identify the witnesses as grand jury witnesses, nor do they reference testimony before the grand jury. Mere speculation by the defendant that these individuals were grand jury witnesses did not establish a prima facie a violation of Rule 6. The defendant cannot show that the prosecution team was a source of any improper disclosures. Moreover, none of the cited articles indicate on their face that any leaked information came from the government, attorneys, or members of the prosecution team. The prosecutors and agents conducting the investigation who had access to the grand jury material. Even the articles that attribute information to law enforcement do so vaguely, citing law enforcement resources. Some of the cited articles simply cite sources or quote previous published articles or reporters. To meet the burden of the 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗃 showing a more explicit connection between the alleged leak and law enforcement officers' conduction of the investigation is required. So the court is saying that no one leaked anything and nothing that the feds have got access to was, leaked by them. When the source is less clear, courts are reluctant to draw the conclusion that the defendant leaps to here that the anonymous sources close to or familiar with an investigation must be personnel conducting the investigation. I'm going to skip a bunch of this, code talk. Moreover, even as to information sourced vaguely to federal law enforcement or something similar, the information discussed in many of the cited articles was not only known or even principally by the prosecution team. For instance, the cited articles about the searches of the defendant's Miami house and LA house contain information that can be gleaned from the material left at those residences following the searches, including the search warrants themselves, as well as the attachment to the search warrants and search warrant inventories. The recipients of those materials, presumably individuals associated with the defendants who have no ties to the prosecution teams, were free to share those materials with anyone they choose, including the defendant, members of the defendant's staff, and any other individuals, including the press. Likewise, with respect to the government's meeting with witnesses, multiple parties other than the government are aware of the instances in which the government meets with witnesses, including the witnesses themselves, counsel for witnesses, and any other individuals the witnesses may choose to tell about the meeting. Any of those individuals, none of whom is within the government's control, is covered by Rule 6. The same goes for information requested by a grand jury subpoena. Recipients of documents requested via grand jury subpoena are not bound by the secrecy of this rule. Therefore, when hundreds of grand jury subpoenas have been issued to third parties, leaked information from sources close to the case about documents and information sought by grand jury subpoena are just likely to have come from the recipient of those subpoenas. I'm going to skip some of this. Well, actually, let's see. Even information in the cited article sourced generally to law enforcement cannot meaningfully be linked to the prosecution team here. For example, in one cited article, defendant in his October 2024 letter, a law enforcement source with knowledge of the case is quoted saying, "This is all about shaming the alleged victims, and it's part of the defense offense course of action. They'll try anything." This perpetuated law enforcement source could be anyone who read the publicly available transcripts of the Bell hearings in this case, or anyone who viewed defense counsel's very immediate interviews following the defendant's arrest. Similarly, information in one of the cited articles attributed to Miami-based DHS officer in the aftermath of March 2024 searches including the following: "We believe there is a disturbing history of sex trafficking. We are responding to concrete, detailed, explicit allegations. That is not random. We did not choose his name out of a hat. We had allegations that we're following up on. We became aware of certain allegations during the course of civil suits against Mr. Combs. You have to understand that we didn't just decide on a whim to search his homes. A federal judge had to sign off. This isn't a witch hunt." So one of the officers was quoted saying that to a magazine or a reporter. And Diddy was trying to use that against them. And the court saying these statements need to not be attributed to anyone even remotely associated with the investigation. They could have come from anyone in law enforcement with a general understanding of how search warrants are executed, who has interviewed victims and pays attention to the news. That is particularly true here, where there were multiple publicly filed civil lawsuits detailing the sex abuse and trafficking claims against the defendant, which garnered significant media attention well before the searches took place on March 25th, 2024. This goes for the alleged federal law enforcement source who is involved in the investigation as well, who in October 2024 evidently review descriptions of videos allegedly depicting sexual acts involving the defendant obtained by the media. That source is quoted saying that these are consistent with the videos we have and just about everything you can imagine happening at his parties. Again, these statements cannot automatically be assumed to contain non-public information or be attributed to the members of the prosecution team, as the government has detailed public statements about video evidence that it has in its possession. Indeed, when the alleged law enforcement source made these comments, the government had already described much of its evidence, including it had videos of freak-offs during two well-publicized bail hearings. Across the cited articles, there appears to be only one source plausibly connected to the investigation at all: a purported DHS officer who claims to have participated in the search of the defendant's Miami home. Much of the information the source discusses was a matter of public record at the time he or she made the comments in September of 2024. Additionally, while the government agrees with the defense in the court that extrajudicial commentary by law enforcement officers involved in the investigation in any way is inappropriate, those remarks, if made by an agent involved in the investigation or prosecution of the case, are plainly improper. An agent who merely participated in a search, who had no access to grand jury materials or even the affidavit setting forth probable cause to search the defendant's Miami house, is decidedly not a member of the prosecution team. Moreover, as described above, nothing disclosed by this source was protected. For all these reasons, the defendant has not made a prima facie showing that matters occurring before the grand jury were leaked. I'm going to skip some of this. The defendant is not entitled to the remedies he seeks. Hey, Scott, good to see you. I think I saw you pop in here. And beautiful Mo, good to see you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys all for being here. We're almost through this Diddy document. Because the defendant cannot make a prima facie showing that the grand jury material was disclosed, much less that the source of the disclosure was an attorney or agent of the government under Rule 6, he is not entitled to an evidentiary hearing. The Second Circuit has made clear that the court may consider information proffered by the government to review a prima facie without holding a hearing. Here, as the only specific alleged grand jury material the defendant cites is CNN's Intercontinental video, which is demonstrably not grand jury material. The defendant is not entitled to a hearing. So the 𝗟𝗄 video, he's not allowed to a hearing to try to get that removed from his trial, which is good in my opinion. The defendant also seeks an order forbidding government attorneys and agents involved in the case from leaking any further information to the media. The request is moot given the orders underscoring the party's existing responsibilities under Local Rule 23. As set forth, the government has transmitted the orders to all attorneys and staff working on the case, as well as all agents, supervisors, with explicit instructions to disseminate all HSI agents and officers, including those located in other field offices who have participated or assisted in the investigation. Accordingly, the defendant's request for such an order is moot. The defendant's request for extraordinary remedies, including discovery, suppression of evidence, disqualification of witnesses, and even dismissal of the indictment, should be rejected out of hand, given that he has failed to make a case for the violation of Rule 6. Oh, I would love that, 𝗵𝗄𝗯𝗃. How fun would that be? I know. I would absolutely love that. The defendant is not entitled to a bill of particulars. By seeking a, let me see if this is even important for us to read. Okay, yeah. By seeking a bill of particulars identifying victims under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 7, the defendants attempt to pervert the federal rules of criminal procedure to unduly and prematurely restrict the government's proof at trial and to co-opt the criminal proceeding to defend himself against complaints in separate civil litigation. The court should reject the misuse of Rule 7, particularly in light of the serious risk that identification of victims poses in such case, which, as such the court is aware, involves serious allegations of violence, essay violence, witness intimidation, and obstruction. Okay, I'm going to skip like a whole 3 pages because we're going to get down to the discussion part of it. Discussion. As a matter, the defendant has not met the procedural requirements of Local Criminal Rule 16 that the motion should be denied on the basis. After sending a letter to the government on October 7, 2024, demanding, among other things, that the government identify its victims, defense counsel alerted the government on October 15, 2024, that they intended to file a motion with the court for the disclosure of the victims' identities. The government promptly requested to confer the motion was filed as required by local rule. That afternoon, shortly before the motion was filed, the parties conferred about the government informed that the defense was aware of no legal authority for the disclosure request, but invited defense counsel to provide it for the government's consideration. The government further stated its position that any such request for disclosure was premature before discovery was completed. Defense counsel did not offer any legal authority, but instead informed the government it would proceed with the filing motion. Shortly thereafter, the defendant filed the motion without an affidavit regarding its efforts to confer with the government in good faith effort to resolve the dispute. The defendant is not entitled to a bill of particulars. But notwithstanding the defendant's procedure failure, the motion also fails on merits because there is no need for a bill of particulars listing victim names here. The defendant has been more than sufficiently apprised of the nature of the charges on the 14-page speaking indictment. The government's written submissions and factual proffers at 2 separate bail hearings, and discovery produced to date totaling over 25 terabytes of data, including detailed search warrants, affidavits, laying out details of the government's investigation and evidence. Courts have repeatedly rejected requests for bills of particular where the defendant has received similar materials. In particular, discovery in the case counsel against the bills of particulars. While the defendant argues that the anticipated volume of discovery underscores the need for a bill of particulars, courts in this circuit routinely deny motions for a bill of particulars based on the mere fact that the case is complex or discovery is voluminous, especially in situations where defendants have had, or in this case, will have many months to review said discovery before trial. So there you go. His team has many months to review all of this information. So he can't say they didn't have enough time or they didn't see all of it. Here, all discovery will be produced by December 31st, 2024. More than 4 months before trial, and the government's rolling productions have intentionally prioritized items like search warrant affidavits, which contextualize the charges in the indictment, as well as other materials requested by the defendant. So by December 31st, 2024, Diddy's team will have all the discovery that they're going to use in trial in May, allegedly. Let me continue. Moreover, the government stands ready to meet and confer with the defense to assist them in reviewing the discovery, a request that the defense has not made. The defendant, backed by 4 prominent law firms with veteran trial lawyers and support staff, cannot credibly claim that he does not have the resources to review these materials within the time he chose to mount a defense. To the extent the defendant claims the time before trial is insufficient to make use of the disclosure he has, the appropriate relief is to ask for an adjournment of the trial date he requested, not to obtain a bill of particulars. In sum, the defendants claim that there's no way Mr. Combs to determine who other unidentified alleged victims are rings hollow. The indictment, along with other disclosures, including discovery, adequately advised the defendant of the criminal acts of which he is accused, and accordingly of potential victims. This is particularly true here, where the defendant is not likely to be surprised by the identity of victims who he may never have met. So he's not going to be surprised by who the victims are and all of those lawsuits and witnesses are. To the contrary, the victims are individuals whom the defendant is alleged to have trafficked, violently assaulted, and transported across state lines for commercial sex, among other criminal acts in which the defendant directly participated. This is wild. The Second Circuit's decision in the United States versus David, on which the defendant relies on his motion, provides him with no support. Unlike in 𝗍𝗻, where the defendant sought the identities of victims in uncharged acts of racketeering, the defendant here seeks the identities of victims of the charged offenses that are outlined in detail in the indictment. Moreover, to the context that the government intends to introduce evidence of conspiracies or criminal acts other than those alleged in the indictment, such as evidence will not be sprung upon the defendant at trial. I'm going to skip this next part. Let's keep it moving. In addition to being unnecessary given prior disclosures, the request is also premature because of additional anticipated disclosures concerning the victims in this case. First, as the defendant is aware, the government will produce additional index discovery over the next few months pertaining to the victims of the offenses. In similar contexts, courts have denied motions seeking the information of victims before the close of discovery. I'm going to skip this next part. It's just a bunch of codes again. Stuff we don't need to really read. There is thus no reasonable risk that the defendant will suffer unfair surprise at trial. There you go. Let me see. The motion improperly seeks to restrict the government's proof and poses serious risk of obstruction. Because the government has more than met its obligations to sufficiently advise the defendant of the acts which he is accused, it is plain what this demand for a bill of particulars really is: a thinly veiled attempt to restrict the government's proof at this early stage of the case and to hijack the criminal proceeding so the defendant can respond to civil lawsuits. This demand should be squarely rejected, especially in the light of risk it poses to witness safety. So the court is saying that his attempt to file this gag order and have to expose the victims is a thinly veiled attempt to restrict the government's proof. They're not playing with Diddy. Disclosure of victim names poses serious risk based on the nature of this case, where the defendant is charged with engaging in a wide range of racketeering acts involving violence and threats of violence and obstruction of justice. The government should not be required to provide information that would, in fact, provide the descendants before trial with a preview of the government's case and its victims with all the attendants risk to disclosure. Discovery in criminal proceedings is not comparable to discovery in civil proceedings because of the nature of the issues, the danger of intimidation of witnesses, and the danger of grand perjury and subornation of perjury. Those concerns are attempts to particularly relevant in a case like this one, with serious, well-supported allegations of prior attempts to obstruct and tamper with witnesses. Courts thus routinely deny requests for victims' identities in racketeering cases when the government demonstrates a risk to witness safety, the potential for witness intimidation, or subornation of perjury. I'm going to skip the next 2 pages and we can make some progress here. The defendant's request would also have the effect of improperly foreclosing the government from using proof it may develop as the trial approaches. The defendant is alleged to have participated in a multi-year conspiracy as well as the defendant is aware. The government's investigation of that conspiracy is ongoing. Accordingly, it would be entirely inappropriate to force the government to commit over 6 months before trial to whom it will present at trial as a victim. Relatedly, the defendant's request for victim names should be denied on the basis that it is a tantamount to request for early disclosure of the government's witness list, something he is not clearly entitled to at this extremely early age of the proceedings. So they're saying that they're not entitled to the victims yet. In the circuit, there's a strong presumption against compelling pretrial disclosure of the identity of government witnesses. Okay, I'm moving on to I'm gonna jump a couple pages. Even more availing is the defendant's argument that he needs victim identity so he can respond to allegations made in civil suits. This court should reject this blatantly improper request. As previously noted, the proper purpose of a bill of particulars under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure is to provide a defendant with necessary information about the details of the criminal charges against him. It is not, however, a backdoor to obtain information from the criminal case so that defendant can use it to defend himself in the media against allegations in civil suits. As the defendant well knows, there is zero legal authority for his attempt to co-opt this criminal proceeding to defend against civil litigation. The victim gag motion should, like the bill of particulars motion, be denied as a premature request for the government to identify and restrict its witness list over 6 months prior to trial. Although styled as a request to prevent prospective witnesses and their lawyers from making extrajudicial statements that substantially interfere with Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial, the reality is that the victim gag motion is simply another way to get a at the relief sought in the bill of particulars motion, premature disclosure of the government's witness, and a restriction of the government's ongoing investigation. The authority cited by the defendant as giving the court the authority to issue such gag orders derives from the local criminal rule, which applies to witnesses and attorneys for witnesses in the criminal case. In other words, for the defendant to get the relief he seeks, the government would be required to identify its witnesses to the defendant and the court 6 months in advance of trial. Not only would the government's compilation of such lists at the outset of its case, and while it's continuing its investigative to be a fool's errand, but such relief would be unprecedented. Further, the defendant does not even begin to attempt to make specific showing required from early witness list. So they're saying absolutely not. We're not going to release that list. And the alternative, to the extent that the defendant seeks a blanket gag order that would prohibit any civil claimant for their attorneys from making extrajudicial statements, such an order would be even more extraordinary and beyond the preview of the local rule on which it relies. Indeed, as to the universe of civil claimants, the defendant has specific relief available to him outside the present criminal case. To date, cases alleging sexual misconduct against the defendant have been filed in state and federal courts, including several in the district. These cases were both filed before the indictment in the present case as well as after. Those cases are presided over by capable and experienced judges who are free to assess whether any sort of gag order is appropriate and fashion remedies, including remedies pursuant to 3.6 of New York. Finally, the defendant's suggestion that the government has direct or unauthorized extrajudicial statements by the counsel for civil litigants is baseless and provides no support for the relief he seeks. Conclusion. For the reasons set forth above, the defendant's motions should be denied. October 30th, 2024. Diddy cannot, and they will not accept your request. I don't know if you guys can see this email. This is an exhibit. It's attached. It's from Diddy's lawyer to, I believe, the state attorneys. Good morning, all. I'm sorry to bother you with this, but we received a word that CNN has been given a video tape of what has been described as a fight involving Sean Combs and blank at the Intercontinental Hotel in Century City from 2016. I imagine it is what is described in paragraphs 120 to 123 of blank civil complaint. My concern is that someone, not any of you, provided the footage to CNN. I bring this to your attention solely because I imagine you do not want this to happen any more than I do, and I am merely making you aware of it. If I get information, I will share it with you. Thank you, Mark. And this was sent on May 17, 2024. It's blacked out because it's the video of 𝗟𝗄𝗄 and Diddy. Exhibit B is some kind of computer evidence that proves the video was accessed, created and modified May 17th and accessed October 26th. So they're basically proving that what Diddy's saying in his document is not right. And then another email, and this is from United States Attorney's Office to Mark, the lawyer. To be clear to our understanding, DHS did not have possession of the videotape prior to CNN's publication of it. Only the government has authority to obtain grand jury material, and the video broadcast by CNN was not obtained through grand jury process. And then another email from Mark to the District Attorney's Office, and it says, "Hi, Emily. Thank you for reaching out and for the call last night. We have contacted you yesterday to tell you what our direction was, invited comment from you, and we hear and appreciate what you are saying. Ultimately, I do not believe you can possibly know what DHS agents did and did not do in regard to this videotape. We are making it very clear that we believe the U.S. Attorney's Office was not involved in the leak. However, I do not feel the same way about the DHS. Again, like I said, we reach out as a gesture of good faith and because we genuinely want to know your perspective. That being said, while you can speak from a position of knowledge in regard to your office, I do not believe you can do so in regard to the agency. This is not an issue of believing you guys or anything remotely like that. It is a matter of not knowing and controlling all aspects of the situation. If I am missing something, please let me know." And then the next page is counsel. In joint letter filed with the court today, you stated that at some point today, Mr. Combs intends to file a motion for hearing and other remedies related to unauthorized prejudicial leaks of grand jury information. To extent that your motion relates to any leak of information associated with March 5th, 2016 surveillance video at the Intercontinental Hotel, we write to follow up on our conversation last night. As previously discussed, the government did not possess the video published by CNN prior to its public release, and the government possessed no surveillance video at all from the Intercontinental prior to CNN's public broadcast. Accordingly, we wish to advise you that we consider any assertion in your motion of perpetuated government leaks related to the Intercontinental surveillance video to lack a good faith basis. There you go. They provided proof that they are not the ones involved with the leak. What do you think? Let me know. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. We just got through all of those documents, all 4 of them. The Lil Durk, Meg Thee Stallion. We read Metro Boomin, and we just read the response from Diddy's motion to gag and, you know, the leaked information from the feds. So thank you for being here. Please hit that like button. I will be back shortly with another live, so I hope you guys can make it. I'm going to schedule it. I'll be live pretty much the rest of the evening, so I hope to see you guys there. And then Fem says, I'm glad his people never made that footage disappear. I know, me too. I'm glad. Justice for 𝗟𝗄𝗄 and everyone else. And shout out and love goes out to all of those who have experienced DV issues, SA situations, all of the above. Sending my love. Make sure you guys hit that like button on the way out, and then I will see you guys shortly. Yes, I have another live coming up here in the next 30 minutes. So make sure you set your notifications. And make sure you hit that like button. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys so much. And like I said, I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.